Yeah, I'm also thinking of that I probably need to behave. I'll discuss that with you after the services. I know you do. We'll go back to, well, first of all, good morning, and it's good to be here today. Good to see you. And hopefully we can learn some things today. And I'd like to ask Sonny if he would to open us with a prayer before we begin our study.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity we have to gather here this morning to be with other brothers and sisters in Christ, those interested in spiritual things. Father, we just are so thankful for your word and what it can do for us in our lives. How it can help us each and every day to learn more about what you want out of us in our lives, how we can bring glory to you. Thank you, Father, that your word can help us to fight all the temptations that we're faced with each day. Follow the craziness of this world that we're faced with each and every day. We just thank you that the word can guide us, lead us. Pray, Father, that we might trust in your word with all of our heart, not try to rely on our own understanding of things, Father, but realizing that your word can lead what will guide us around down that straight path, Father. Brother Jason, influence to study your word and learn it, and teach it to us. May that our minds be focused and that we'll pay attention, that we can learn, take what we learn and apply it to our lives. Help you, Father, to grow your kingdom. We do pray, Father, for those that are lost. Pray that we'll do all that we can to try to help them learn the truth. We're so thankful again for being able to be here this day. Be with us and bless our time together. Pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 13. And we're still on the subject of the second coming of Christ and what the Bible says about it. I understand that y'all went in detail through Matthew chapter 24 not too long ago, so we'll move on to Matthew chapter 13. How many of you grew up on some kind of farm, or it didn't have to be a big farm, but just whatever? Yep, raise your hand. Raise it real high. See, that's over 50%. And what I really like about some of these scriptures that Jesus, the scriptures that we have that record what Jesus said, is a lot of it's about agriculture, and it's easy to understand. If it's not easy to understand, then I can't understand it and I can't relay it to you. But we'll start in Matthew 13 and start in verse 24. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said to him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of harvest I will say unto the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Now, let's go down to verse 36, and I really like it when Jesus he explains it in detail. Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of the world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Okay, so I remember years ago that we used to, when we would plant a cover crop after we gathered the main crop, which would be corn or peanuts or whatever, but we would grow our own wheat seed to try and save a little money. And the thing about it is, when you have field run seed, you look into that bin or whatever, and all you can see is tons of wheat. But there are also some little weed seeds in there, and most of them were wild turnips. And I remember that in one field we spread the seed that we grew, and we ran out, and we had to finish the field with some store-bought seed, which had been cleaned. And the weeds, you could see where our seed ended, because there was wild turnips everywhere. And then where we planted the store-bought seed, it was nothing but wheat. And I said, you know, I think I don't know about the economics but I knew I just didn't like looking at those turnips. So, and so the point is, the devil is always going to be there trying to mess you up. That's the best way I know how to put it. He's going to be there. I remember Mr. Francis Hoffman, and he had this saying, I don't know where he got it, but maybe he made it up. I used to frequent his house years ago, and he would say, I don't want to get too deep into it, but he was going to, go ahead and go to bed or go outside or something. He said, buddy boy, I'm going to do something for you the devil won't even do for you. I said, what's that? He said, I'm going to leave you alone. That's true. So we're really at war, and it's a spiritual war. And if you can't see it, then I'm going to say that's not good, because you may not be spiritually mature enough to see it, and that would be no excuse. I mean, that would be okay if you're a new Christian, you see. But once you get further along, you can see the war, and it's everywhere. I don't remember exactly where it was in Ecclesiastes, but Solomon said that wisdom will drive you mad. So what I'm saying is, if you don't know what's going on, then you're kind of blessed, as long as you're not supposed to know what's going on. Not, like if you've been a Christian 30 years, but you're spiritually like a 2-year-old. That's not good. But, it's kind of like little children. I'm going to say from age 1 to 10 for sure, they can't see the big picture. They can't see what's going on. They can't see the evil. But once a child becomes to a certain age, well, I'm going to say they can see the evil, but they can't understand it. I mean, they can see it, but they don't really know what's going on. But once a child gets to a certain age, they just lose their innocence. That's just the way we're designed. They lose their innocence. And at that point, I would say they need to start thinking about obeying the gospel. But, excuse me. So, Jesus said this whole thing is like a farmer in a field, and he bought good seed, or he had good seed, I don't want to keep rambling, but on the store-bought seed, it has a ticket on it that says, pure seed 99.98, and then 0.01, weed seed, or 0.01, whatever. Okay, but and that is true. And I'm going to stop rambling in a minute, because last year we planted soybeans for the first time in a long time, and I had heard about these Roundup resistant pigweeds, and we hadn't had them, but when I planted those soybean seed, it was everywhere. So it had to come from the seed. But so this farmer put forth all this work, and he bought the good seed, and while he slept, the devil came in and destroyed stuff everywhere. Destroyed wheat seed. Now that's low down. But the devil is low down. And if you've never fought with the devil, I'm sorry, I'm coughing in this thing, but I got 30 years of dust in my lungs and throat. But there's nothing that he won't do to destroy you. Name some things that you know he'll do that he'll use against you. I know. Do you know? What will Satan use against you to destroy you? Speak freely. Well, I'm sure he knows your weakness. I think I said it maybe a month ago, that I don't see anywhere in the Bible that it teaches us that Satan can read your thoughts like God can. But he can surely see everything else, like what goes on around you. He can see what you look at. He can see what you say. He can see how you react to things. And he can figure it out. What kind of people you love to be around? Yeah.
You know, going with the parable, I think one of his primary tactics today is to take our space and time.
Space and time.
He takes up our space in our lives, and he takes up our time. He uses our time.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of in the parable, I think that's what maybe a point that's coming out of that is when there's a weed there, and Satan put those weeds and those came up, it took away space for a good seed to be.
That is a good point.
The time and the growth area for something else to be there that should be there.
That's a great point. In the parable of the sower in Luke chapter 8, if you want to turn over there quickly, there were 4 different categories there. Some fell by the wayside. The birds of the air came and devoured it. Some fell upon the rocks, sprang up, and there was no moisture. Some fell among the thorns. Now, the thorns, if you look in Luke chapter 8, I broke my glasses. I got 462 pair of glasses, but I can't find any of them. In verse 14, it says, "And that which fell among thorns are they which, when they have heard the word, and are choked with the cares, riches, and pleasures of this life, and bring no fruit to perfection." So what Satan uses against you may or may not be evil in and of itself. Okay? It may or may not be evil in and of itself. The cares, the riches, and the pleasures of this life, and bring no fruit to perfection. So what Brother Jason said is that there is a finite amount of time and space, and just like in that field, there's so many square feet of space in that field, and every square inch that is taken up by a weed, that means that much is not available for what you're trying to get done. And the cares and the riches and the pleasures of this life, think about that. The cares, okay, what are we so worried about? What are we so concerned about? What takes up most of our RAM memory in our minds? Okay? What is it that we think about all day long? What are we so worried about? If we're worried. What is it? Cares? Okay? Well, I'm short on money and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pay my power bill. Well, as far as I know, in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus said that if he clothes the birds of the field in such a way, then he's going to give you food, clothing, and shelter. Now, he may not get your power bill paid, but he may get you somewhere to where you can afford the power bill. You see? Maybe your power bill's too big. Maybe you run the air conditioner too much. All right, so we lived a long time without air conditioner. Now, I'm not saying we ought to cut the air conditioner off for you, but I'm saying we don't have to have it. I mean, fat boys have got to have it, but not really. I mean, I could lose 40 pounds and the heat wouldn't affect me so bad. But what else are we caring about? What takes up that time in our mind? What are we just rolling around over and over and over and over? Entertainment.
We think our children have to be entertained from daylight to dark all the time. We think we have to be entertained all the time.
It's an addiction.
We don't remember at all, be still and know that I'm God, Psalm 46. It just, we're incapable of doing that anymore, it seems like. Especially now with our children.
Yeah.
It is constantly something all the time. They run, I didn't say ruin, I said they run our lives because we schedule everything around them and what kind of entertainment we can do and how they're involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a terrible example for our children.
Well, entertainment's an addiction. It could be an addiction. Because if you can't sit still, and I can't, anybody that knew me when I was little knew I couldn't be still. And I still can't. That's just the way I'm made. All right? That's just who I am. I got to be doing something. And it's difficult for me to sit on the porch and just sit there and not do anything. But then when I sit there for a couple of minutes, I start hearing the birds that I wasn't listening to. And I start seeing the squirrels that I wasn't watching, looking at. So then my mind goes into all of these birds and squirrels. They have what they need. Okay. So speaking of entertainment, I don't know if you knew my daddy's daddy, but I'll make it short and sweet. If I heard this once, I heard it 1,000 times, that my daddy drugged my granddaddy kicking and screaming into the 20th century. So, therefore, Dad, I don't know, maybe you do, but my father did not have an indoor bathroom until he was a senior in high school, 1965. They could see the chickens walking under the house in 1965. He said that he remembered, and I'm going somewhere with this, he said he can remember it being so cold in that house. It basically was a log house that they covered up with shingle sheets that had brick printing on it. Y'all remember that? All right. And he said it got so cold in there that he remembers when the fire went out and the wash pot or the wash pan was above on the mantle, he said it was frozen. And my granddaddy, that's the way he grew up. And all the other stuff cost a lot of money. And he didn't want to spend the money and this and that. Okay. Well, what I'm trying to say is I grew up a little different. Now, I had the amenities of life, don't get me wrong. But I grew up a little different. I grew up trained by old people that were really a generation behind. But the entertainment, the thought that we have to have all these things in our life is really just an illusion. The cares and the riches and the pleasures of this life will definitely take up room in your mind, and it costs money, And when you boil it down, what do we have to survive? Food, clothing, shelter. Food, clothing, shelter.
There's a lot of times we got too many possessions. We let our possessions possess us.
Yep.
That's something we really don't need, but we won't get back.
I totally agree. I can tell you for sure, the more you have, the more problems you have. Talking about material things, the more you have, the more that you are supposed to be tending to, the more problems that you're going to have. So if you don't like solving problems, then, you know, and there's nothing wrong with what I do or what Randy does. Abraham, he had lots of livestock, okay? But just understand that if you got a lot of stuff to see about, you're going to have a lot of problems every day, every single day. So the thing is, there's nothing wrong with those things, but if that starts to take control to where you can't even pray because you're so worried about this and that. The cares and riches and pleasures of this life. Name some other things that are not bad, but if they take up more time and space than they're supposed to. All right, we got entertainment. What else?
I think a lot of sports.
Sport.
Taking things over. Now they got to do with pickleball. What's that?
What?
Pickleball.
What?
Pickleball. Pickleball. Pickleball.
Pickle ball.
That's a new sport.
I told you I was raised by old folks. I never heard of pickleball. I don't. Anyway, all right. Tommy, what were you going to say?
We had 3,000 when I was a kid. You stayed outside playing. You know, stayed outside playing.
We entertained ourselves,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Trees.
Some of it wasn't good, but
Kickball, stuff like that.
what?
Kick tadpoles.
Yeah, yeah,
Back there, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
Throw rocks, you know.
Throw rocks at each other, is that what you said?
No, throw rocks at the can or fish, stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I know I have any kids. I used to kids today. I don't got a cell phone. They all got cell phone police and a phone tower.
yeah. Well, the information that we have access to is really phenomenal. And I like to learn things, so I mean, if I start to be interested in something, I want to know everything about it, and I can spend hours just studying on something that really just doesn't matter, okay? But I like information, but definitely the iPhone, what all that stuff, it can be a problem. But really, what it all boils down to, and what really life boils down to, is self-control. Self-control. And it's a habit. Some things become habit. And they say it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. So if you think that you got too much screen time, or you think your children have too much screen time, I hope it's not scream time, but just take 21 days. Just form a new habit and say and it takes self-control.
When I was a kid, little broke people, and in the first world summertime, we have one little boy, one side, the other side. And that's what we did, you know, one day ago.
Yeah, we had bottle rocket wars, but I think we got in trouble.
Keep two, you know, like that.
Right. So really the world is the same. People are the same as they always have been. People are people, but the situations have changed. So another,
Kind of opposite of what we're talking about, the flip side of what we're talking about. You know, I think, well, I know we said all the way through the Bible, from Adam and Eve after the garden, all the way through, you know, we are to be productive,
yeah,
which is to produce something.
yeah,
And all the way through, that's what we started with this morning, talking about. You know, the farmer was producing, he was doing. You know, I think we find out, especially with these more simple cases of depression and different things and all today that we deal with and everybody dealing with, you know, if people would be productive, they would do better about themselves.
absolutely.
They simply don't know how to no longer be productive, we're not taught it. And so on the opposite of kind of some of the other things, the things that we do need to teach are the things, the principles of the Bible you do produce, you know. It talks about the birds of the air having what they need and the lilies of the field, how they're, but all those things also, he teaches us how to prepare those things. To work towards, you know, making ourselves have the benefit of the thing that we produce, the thing that we make. And there are fewer and fewer producers, and we just use up stuff anymore. I think if we all learn a little bit, you know, I'll have a bad week, but if I don't feel like I've done something productive that day, it kind of bothers me a little bit.
It bothers me.
We all are. I think people, idle hands makes their mind, you know, wonder, and they get depressed and have little work. And, you know, there's no better way to teach self-work than to produce something. We need to do that a little more. The Bible gets all the way through the Bible with that. Teaching you how to do and how to work, and how to make things better for yourself.
That's right.
Being rich, not being, it was just for your health and survival.
That's right. People like sometimes I'm gonna say you almost have to be taught how to produce, because you're gonna need some structure. Okay, you're gonna need a plan. You're gonna need some self-discipline. You're going to have to figure out when you face the challenge, how are you going to not quit? All right, and there's different ways. Okay, you can say, okay, today I'm going to get so and so done before I go home. Well, you may not. Okay, depends on how many problems come up, but you know how you need to know how to allocate your time. And I'm not going to get into how I do it, because it may not be how you do it. All right, but you got to have some kind of plan and some kind of structure. And whenever you complete the task, the good feeling that you get, you're going to need to log that into your memory on how good it feels. So then whenever you start the next task and you say, well, I don't really want to do this today, you need to think, well, it feels good to complete something. So
I was going to say this, where you started at in the parable of the tares. A couple of things that I've thought about over the years, looking at that. You know, it's suggested in the midst of that let's get rid of these tares.
right.
And the master said, no, let's leave them there till the harvest. Some people say, well, there's a contradiction here, because y'all go critiquing one another in the church. You shouldn't do that. Just let them be. But remember, the field is the world.
Yeah, that's not the church.
The field is the world.
Right.
What it is saying, though, it seems to me anyway, what it is saying is that sometimes among churches, not necessarily the church, but among churches, they take up the agenda within the church. Their whole work is to fix the world. The world's messed up over here. Let's start a program for, you just name it.
Yeah.
Because of this woven society. But it's not the church's job to go fixing the world. The world's going to have a problem, you know, till the end. The Lord's going to sort that out in the end.
That's exactly right.
It's not our objective to try to fix the world. And now indirectly, we will if we
Right.
follow the way the gospel become the church.
Right. Exactly. So back to the parable. Thank you very much for that. The weeds are going to be there, and the devil is going to always sow tares in your life and in your business. He's always going to do it. He's never going to stop unless you're on his side. So if you all of a sudden one day notice that Satan hadn't bothered you in a while, you might need to be thinking. Okay, and something else. I don't go on feelings. All right, and I thought about this. I've thought about this a lot. I thought about it a lot yesterday. Feelings are real, but the salvation is not based on feelings. But salvation also produces feelings, and if you feel lost, not necessarily spiritually lost, but I'm just lost. If you feel lost, there's a good chance you probably are. And I'm not talking about people that have never obeyed the gospel. I'm talking about people that's obeyed the gospel and have let the cares, riches, and pleasures of this life creep into their life, and they're not bringing any fruit to perfection. And they know what it feels like to be saved. And in good, like Mike says, on speaking terms with God or something like that. So you know how that feels. But if you feel like you're not saved, it could be that you're close to not being saved, or maybe already back out into the world, like 2 Peter 2:20-22 says, you gone back out and got entangled into all this stuff. You see? So I'm not saying let your feelings be your guide or let your conscience be your guide. Let the scriptures be your guide. But feelings, they're real, and you secondarily pay attention to them. So let's go back to Matthew chapter 13. The workers, the people on riding for the brand, as we call it, they said, you want us to go out and pluck these things up? And he said, no, just let them grow. Because when you pluck them up, they're intermingled. The roots are intermingled. And when you pull that wild turnip up, you're going to destroy some of the wheat or whatever was planted out there. He said, let it alone until the harvest. Now that's how smart God is. He can see the big picture. And he knows what is going to occur. And he said whenever the reapers come in, or the harvesters come in, I'm going to do the sorting. Now I don't know how many of you know what a grain combine is, but that thing does the sorting. Okay? And sometimes, like I'm gonna say in corn, in the late season, you might have a few late season weeds come up, and the crop's already made, and so instead of trying to destroy those late season weeds, if it's not too many, that machine goes through there and it gathers the corn, and sometimes there's going to be some things in there not supposed to be there. And also there's some byproduct there that doesn't go into the hopper, like the cob and the shuck and the stalk and the leaves. And see, that thing does all the sorting. And it spits all the other stuff out the back and puts the grain in the tank. Well, that's pretty much what's going to happen on the last day. He said that on the last day, we're going to gather all of the faithful Christians together. And we're going to put them in the barn. Okay? And then the rest of the stuff is going to be burned. Now, think of, I know we got 2 minutes, so try to think like a weed. Real quick, try to think like a weed. So you're out there and you're in amongst all this nice other stuff and say, I've gotten by. I've gotten by. Well, not really. That's not your time yet. So if I had a pen, I'd write that down, because that's another point I'd like to, somebody remember that. It's got a photographic memory. Next week, we're going to start talking about think like a weed. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Well,